thank you Prem and Anita for giving this opportunity, and thank you all for coming here this afternoon. I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes. So some very nice movie clips from the earlier session, and I got inspired by one of them. तो मैंने सोचा यहाँ पे कुछ एक बोल दूँ मैं कि जो एक मूवी थी यहाँ पे चक दे, तो उससे इंस्पायर होकर मैं कुछ कहने वाला हूँ कि यहाँ के जो अगले 15 मिनट आप सबके आज के सबसे महत्वपूर्ण 15 मिनट हैं. Okay, so let's make the most of it. Yeah, I have some very close friends sitting here, friends from industry, friends from the distribution community. So thank you all. And मुझे ये देख के बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है कि मार्केट्स 10-15% पीक से नीचे हैं, बट यहाँ का जो एंथुसियाज्म है उतना ही बरकरार है. तो देख के काफ़ी अच्छा लगा. एंड कैसे माहौल चेंज होता है. मैं करीब 4-5 महीने पहले ऐसे ही इवेंट में था, सबके हाथ में एक पोलिंग मीटर दिया गया था कि आप मार्केट की वैल्यू बताइए. तो तभी सितंबर एंड था और तब मार्केट करीब 85,000 सेंसेक्स चल रहा था, और वहाँ पे 4-5 ऑप्शन दिए गए कि अगले 3-6 महीने में आपको मार्केट कहाँ जाता हुआ नजर आ रहा है. तो ऑप्शन सुनिए आप, 80 to 90,000, 90,000 to 1 lakh, 1 lakh एंड अबाउ, एंड लास्ट में एक छोटा ऑप्शन दिया गया था लेस देन 80,000. 4% पीपल क्लिक लेस देन 80,000. तो मैं उसी दिन समझ गया था कि मार्केट पीक हो चुका है. Okay. So माहौल बहुत आसानी से चेंज होता है. You know, we are here for the long term. We are here to create wealth for our clients for the long term. So these things should not matter. But people go by just trends. Same thing happened in Singapore in one of the conferences where there are some 600-700 people in the audience, and they were asked a question: "Ki how many of you don't own Nvidia?" Okay, global audience. So the answer was 2%. 2% people didn't own Nvidia. This was about 2-3 months ago. This is something which I heard from one article, or somebody spoke about it. Rajiv Sharma, I think, one of his articles he mentioned. So I'm just trying to highlight that people just follow trends and people don't think long term. I'm talking about clients. आप सब बहुत लंबा सोचते हैं, clients के लिए बहुत लंबे समय के लिए सोचते हैं, लेकिन इन्वेस्टर छोटे मोटे करेक्शन से डर जाता है, and they come back running to you every day कि ये क्या हो रहा है. Okay, so topic that you can see here is, it is a very normal thing to say, but I think it is time that we reiterate the same things. You'll see many arguments. Many experts have spoken about SIP क्यों करना चाहिए, क्यों लंबे समय तक रहना चाहिए, लेकिन बहुत समय के लिए लोग रहते नहीं हैं. Getting SIP is very easy. You all agree. But how many people stay put for 10, 15, 20 years? Very few. Data shows that. So today I thought I will share something with you which will give you some talking points, and it will help you in reaching out to your clients, giving them powerful arguments. So since the time is short, I'm not going to take much time in discussing other things. So I'll just move on to the topic and just share with you some very interesting slides. So we all have heard about artificial intelligence, right? And people have asked this question: when will we implement AI in our business? All that keep happening, but as of now, let us focus on only one SIP, which is systematic intelligence plan. यहाँ पे राहुल सिंह या इंटीग्रेटेड से उन्होंने कुछ बताया, SIP के नए फुल फॉर्म बताया. तो मेरे हिसाब से आज की तारीख में I think let us follow systematic intelligence plan. Okay, so I am going to leave you behind with 3 important messages. I have only 10-15 minutes or 10-12 minutes to speak. So this first message is for all of you sitting here. It's not for the client, but message number 1 is something very simple that you have seen. कि जो SIP की जो बुक की बात कर रहे हैं 26,400. So if you look at the last 4-5 years, जो हम इक्विटी में पैसा इकट्ठा करते हैं, जो लमसम सेल्स आती है, नेट सेल्स आती हैं, as you can see, for the last 5 years, on an average, 72% of all the money collected in mutual funds, in equity mutual funds, net sales, has come from SIPs. And we have seen in good and bad times, SIPs have been our saviors, especially in the bad times. अब जैसे आगे चल के 3-6 महीने, 12 महीने, 1 साल, 2 साल, पता नहीं कितने देर तक, अगर हमारे नेट सेल्स इंडस्ट्री में कम हो गए, रुक गए, तो SIPs will come to the fore and they will save us. So this is something which is very critical for us to understand कि जो हमारी जो 26,000 करोड़ की जो बुक चल रही है, हमको इसको बढ़ते, ये पिछले साल करीब 19,000 थी. Beginning of last financial year it was about 19,000. Today this has become 26,000, and this number can easily cross 35-40,000 in the next 12-18 months. So let's keep this focus on, and this is not for the client. This is for you to understand that this is one business which is built on SIP, and this should continue in the way it has continued. And there are many industry experts talking about 1 lakh SIP book at some point in time. So that is the reality. This will happen. And in the last 3-4 years, we've seen मार्केट में जितनी भी एफआईएस की सेलिंग हुई है, जैसे अक्टूबर 2021 से सितंबर 2022 या पिछले 5 महीने में जो FIs का पैसा निकला है, it is only our SIP book which has helped us save. So I think I would want all of you to give a big round of applause to yourself on this. Message number 2. Now all of us do SIPs, but not everybody has the same journey of SIPs. This is something which I plotted with my own hand. ये कहीं आपको नेट पे नहीं मिलेगा, ये मैंने खुद पेंसिल से कुछ ड्रॉ किया था, तो मुझे लगा कि इसको मुझे आपको दिखाना चाहिए. तो ये करीब 5 सिनेरियोज हैं जो SIP की जर्नी है. फर्स्ट सिनेरियो इज द ऑप्टिमिस्टिक सिनेरियो. दिस इज अ 15-year सिनेरियो वेयर समबडी पुट्स इन 10 रुपीस एंड द NAV बिकम्स 60, बट इसकी जर्नी जो है बहुत ही अलग है. तो आपका ऑप्टिमिस्टिक सिनेरियो यहाँ पे आप इन्वेस्ट करते जा रहे हो और पैसा बढ़ते जा रहा है हर साल 15 साल तक. ये दिस इज ऑप्टिमिस्टिक सिनेरियो. ये होता नहीं रियल लाइफ में. रियल लाइफ में क्या होता है? रियल लाइफ में होता है पॉइंट नंबर 2, जो सिनेरियो 2 है, which is a more realistic. जैसे आपने पैसा डालना शुरू किया, शुरू में मार्केट 20% गिरा और आगे जाते हुए मार्केट हैज गॉन अप डाउन. जर्नी नॉर्मली ऐसे ही होती है, मार्केट हमेशा ऊपर नहीं जाता. तो सेकंड सिनेरियो इज द सिनेरियो which is most likely to happen, but the outcome is even better than the first scenario because you get the benefit of rupee cost averaging. आप लगातार बढ़ते हुए मार्केट में पैसा डालेंगे तो आपको जो NAV मिलेगी, और उसके मुकाबले जो सेकंड सिनेरियो में आपकी जो NAV मिलेगी आपको इन SIPs is more favorable and more rewarding to the investor. So that is something which all of you should remember. The third scenario is nothing but a scenario where you keep accumulating money in rising markets, but when you want to withdraw your money in the last 2-3 years, the markets fall. So this is a tough one. A good start, but a tough finish. And the last two scenarios are more theoretical in nature. It is nothing but a theoretical lottery or a theoretical disaster. This is just to showcase what kind of journeys that one can undertake. Not that in India we will see the same journey. Number 4 and 5 may not happen in India. It has happened in some other countries. But the scenario number 2 is most likely to happen in India. Rising market with corrections. So this scenario is very optimum for the client, where you can make money, and whatever the outcome is, the outcome, even if it is an average outcome, that itself is very good. So in all these journeys, if your client stays through thick and thin and continues his journey, he will see a outcome which is rewarding. For India, what is rewarding outcome? Even at 11, 12, 13% is a very rewarding outcome. Investors started getting used to 22, 23, 25, 30% return. So that is not the real return. Return is in line with what you get with economic growth or corporate earning growth, which is 11, 12, 13%. So to take any scenario, especially the scenario 1, 2 and 3, the chances are that you will end up between 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 over a long period of time. So just to give you examples of these journeys, if you take multiple journeys across time periods. So what I've done here is I've taken 3 different occasions and 10-year periods. 10 years is the most minimum number of years that you can invest in SIPs. You should not invest even for 10 years. It should be 15, 20, 30 years. But even if you take a 10-year period and you take a starting point, which is, the rising market, peak of dot-com bubble burst, year 2000, 1st Jan 2000 में आपने अगर SIP शुरू की और आपने Lehman crisis के बाद SIP अगर बंद की, तो इसमें आपका आउटकम ऐसा है कि you've done SIP for 10 years and your index return, the Sensex return has been 20% per annum. So you started SIP at the peak of markets and you ended the SIP somewhere after the Lehman crisis ended. Still your return was 20%. This is nothing because of your rupee cost averaging, where you accumulated a lot of units over the last 10 years. Second scenario is from global bull run to taper tantrum. So you started your SIP in a down market from Jan 2003 and you ended your SIP in 2012. Still your returns were above 15% per annum. This is in the index. And the last scenario, again a random scenario, the bottom of the economic cycle in Jan 2014 and ends after the COVID. So returns were still 14% plus per annum. So just trying to highlight that any journey you undertake, over different periods of time, your returns on the index have been very, very good. So this is something, it's a lesson for the investor. People who start SIP or don't start SIP, they keep waiting. तो उनको बताना चाहिए कि आप किसी भी समय SIP कीजिए, but लंबे समय तक रहिए, तो आपका return will be average to above average. Now earlier slide was 10-year period. Now take a period of 15-20 years at one time. So this is nothing but a 15-20 years as on 1st of January 2025. So as you look at the returns of 15-20 years, the returns are still fairly decent, about 13% per annum. This is again the index. We are not talking about our funds. Our funds in flexi cap, large cap, small cap, mid cap, all funds would have delivered 15, 17, 18, 20% return per annum. But this is just the index. So the idea is to stay put for long term. Take any 10-year block, take 15, 20 year. Your returns have all been well above averages of the index. But the challenge is, when we talk to investors, we stay put for long, but very few people stay invested in equities for long. You know what is the average holding period in equity mutual funds? All of you are aware of this, so I should not have kept it as a suspense. It is 3.3. This is RTA data. हम बातें लंबी करते हैं नो, invest for long term, invest for 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, but actually the investment horizon is for mutual funds, equity mutual fund is just 3.3 years. When it comes to real estate, gold, people invest for long term. Real estate, people don't buy for 5-10 years, people buy for 20, 25, 30 years. Gold has shown the same volatility like equities, but nobody comes back to you कि gold मेरा गिर गया price, last 10 साल में gold has also exhibited so much volatility. If you take 40-year journey, it has been the most volatile asset class after equities. So when people say 20 years, कौन रखेगा इतना पैसा लंबा? So now coming back to the movie clips, you can again see some of the same movies getting repeated. When people talk about 20 years, whether is 20 years long term, but when you look at some of these movies, you realize कि 20 साल लंबे समय नहीं होता है, 20 साल ऐसे निकल जाता है. In this room, all of you will agree कि 25 years पहले कोविड से जूझ रहे थे, right? Same time, March 2020 में कोविड चल रहा था. आज 5 साल हो गए, आज मुझे याद है लोग मास्क पहन के बैठे हुए थे आप 1-2 साल के बाद. So 5 years is something that is just passed. तो 20 साल भी ऐसे पास हो जाते हैं. So if you see some of these movies, these are all movies which have got released about 20 years ago. So 20 years is not long term. Please tell your clients, if you want to invest in equities, 20 years is not long term and 20 years will just pass. Message number 3. When people put money in SIPs, we say invest in SIP for 5 years, 10 years. But as you can see, when you invest in mutual funds, in SIPs with a 5-year view, almost 73% of the money that is invested, and when you look at the value of your SIP investments after 5 years, 73% of that value is just your own money, it's your own principal. When you invest in mutual funds, equity mutual funds, 73% is your own money. When you invest with a 10-year view, and when you get 12% return per annum, more than 50% of the money is your own principal. Only when you move ahead, go to 20 years, that's when the value of the return is 76% and only 24% is your principal. And we all know as we age, in the next few years, the life expectancy is only going to rise and it is very easy to live much longer. So people who are today 50, 55 can live up to 85, 90. So people who are investing a lot of money, they need to understand that you will live much longer and you can invest for even 30, 40 years. Now you can look at when you invest in 30, 40 years, what happens? The value of your principal drops to 10% and 4% respectively for 30 and 40 years. And the value of return in the overall portfolio is much higher. So 2 lakh rupees per month can become 20 crores in 20 years, but it can become 70 crores in 30 years and 237 crores and at only 12% return per annum. We are not talking about 15-20% return per annum. So the key is that to make money, there is no mantra. You have to invest with a long-term view. There is no shortcut to creating wealth. Now this is something interesting that I would like to show here that I don't think most of you would have even imagined or even thought about. This is very theoretical. This is just for a little bit of fun. If you look at the Japanese markets, in the last 35 years, Japan has been flat. You all agree, 1990 Japanese Nikkei was at 38,000. Today it's again at 38,000. In this period, Japanese economy grew at about 0.3-0.4% per annum. The corporate profits of Japanese companies grew at about 4% per annum. And see the outcome of a SIP investor in Japan in their own currency. So Japanese investor has also ended up making 4.5% return in last 35 years. So this is a case of an extreme scenario where in 35 years index has not given any return, but a Japanese investor who has done SIP in their currencies for 35 years has also got return in line with their corporate profits. So these are very theoretical arguments, but I thought in 15-minute time I can't stretch too many arguments, so I thought I'll show you something which is little interesting, little out of box. But this is just to prove that SIPs work for all and in most markets. And today, any client, what they talk about. What is your biggest worry? What does the client say? What is the biggest worry when they invest money? Nobody wants to lose money, right? Indian investors are very happy when they put in some FD, वो company बंद अगर हो गई, right? आपने 5 साल के लिए FD की, उसका पैसा 5 साल के बाद आप क्या कहोगे? मुझे मेरा principal लौटा दो. Nobody talks about return. Okay, so loss of capital is the biggest worry. So now I'll show you last slide, which is talking about what happens when you invest at market peaks, when market has peaked. Now 1992 Harshad Mehta scam time पे अगर आपने पैसा लगाया होता at 45 P, you would have made 9% return till date for last 33 years. Okay, plus dividend yield. If you invested at the peak of dot-com bubble in Jan 2000 and you stayed put for the last 25 years, you made 10% return per annum. Again, you need to add dividend yield to that. और अगर आपने Lehman crisis के पहले अगर पैसा लगा दिया होता 2007-8 में, तो वहां से भी आपका 8% रिटर्न बनाए प्लस 1.5-2% dividend yield. So people who invest in equities, in index also I'm saying, and they stay put for very long term, they have not lost money. In fact, they have got returns which could be even more than FDs. Okay, so this is a very powerful argument for people who keep waiting to invest in equities. And finally, somebody who invested before COVID. Okay, pre-COVID, I'm not talking about post-COVID. Somebody put in money before COVID at Sensex of 42,000 and stayed put for last 5 years. Even that person has made 12% return per annum. This is after the recent market correction. I have not taken September 2024 data. This data is as of Feb 2025. Market has corrected. Even then, investors have made 12% return plus the dividend yield over the last 5 years. So the objective is that stay put for long. So there is no magic. There is no mantra to create wealth. You have to stay put for long in Indian equities, and you will make a lot of money in line with the index for a long period of time. So that's all I have to say, and thanks a lot.